Welcome to the All Blends Perfectly podcast. Keith, Ryan, Harrison, Coalition Properties, and friends talking about the intersection between lifestyle, real estate, culture, art, and everything in between because it all blends perfectly. All right, good people. Welcome back to another episode of It All Blends Perfectly, the podcast with Ryan. Oh, he with us in spirit. Keith and Harrison. And guess what? I actually have something that doesn't say Coalition on it. I know people were like skeptical. I have a shirt that doesn't say Coalition, and I wore it out one time too. It's got a little fit on it too. Yeah. You know, the drip episode inspired me.
There you go.
But we're back for another conversation on All Blends Perfectly podcast, and we really wanted to talk about something timely today.
Very timely.
Because we in spring.
We are in the spring
Things
market.
blooming. I feel like as soon as the blossoms get on the trees, as soon as the weather goes up a little bit, the real estate market takes back. And what's interesting about this in 2023 is the last 3 years, we didn't really have seasonality.
We didn't.
Because if you remember, in March 2022, what happened? Ukraine conflict, economic, interest rates went nuts.
Yeah, everybody, let's see what's going to happen.
2021, we were still figuring out pandemic. Like it was crazy, but it wasn't like a official like spring start, let's go.
Yeah.
But this year, it was like set your clock, like mid-March.
Yes.
Everybody decided that the real estate market needs to go. So Keith, since this was something that you wanted to kind of lead the convo, what is kind of the current state of the real estate market that you're seeing that's making like spring 2023 different, and what should people know about it?
Yeah, we have been talking about for a while, and I think the longest we've ever talked about how the market was favorable for buyers this past year. And I would say 3 weeks ago, we saw that change like drastically, so quick, right? Yeah. And now we're seeing more multiple offers than we've seen in the last year. Yeah. And so what that means is now for buyers, we have to change the messaging, right? Yep. We have to, be prepared. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. So we have to be prepared to write and be very competitive and not ask for closing help. And that starts on the front end, right? That starts on the front end. As you're getting pre-approved in that consultation, you have to be ready and you have to know that you're about to enter in a market that's competitive. Yeah. Right?
And I think the speed that people come to say, I'm kind of thinking about it, to I want to go see it, to I want to write an offer. That's something that historically you are elite at in the business of helping people get through the sales cycle quicker. But it used to be kind of your impetus, your instruction, you're dragging them along. Yeah. Now they're like coming like, nah, Keith, come on.
Absolutely.
Like, let's go. Like, let's sprint. And I feel like that's an important sentiment for everybody watching this to understand, is that this isn't like a frenzy or something that's created by us. Like, this is the desire of the consumers that I feel like have had pent up demand, and they have been waiting.
And they have been waiting. So you have those people that have been waiting, and now as lending has got more equipped with what's going on in the marketplace, offering more incentives, they're like, okay, I'm tired of waiting. They've been paying rent for all this time. It's time to get out here and make a move in the marketplace. And so I think us as a team, we're very good about making sure our clients are prepared and know what they're looking for once they get out to look at homes. Yeah. So, and that's why our clients write their first offer in the first 2 to 4 homes they see, because we're very granular and specific with the criteria, right? And so now it's like, oh, they've been window shopping all this time. They get out and they see something they like, they're ready to write. Now, okay, how are we going to be competitive in this marketplace? Because we had already been saying you can get closing help. Yeah.
Sorry, the episodes age fast. That was what? This is April. That was January?
That was January. That was January.
3 months.
Think about that. Yeah. And I mean, it happened just like that.
Yeah. So factors. So we talked a little bit about some pent-up demand. I think another factor is just that people now are used to the current interest rate environment. Yes. Can you talk about that a little bit? When you talk with folks about rates, because I always ask like, well, because rates haven't really gone down.
No.
But they're doing it. How are you having conversations about interest rates with people right now?
I think it goes back to the messaging. We were in a market in 2020, 2021 that was not real almost, 2%, 3% interest rate. Yeah. That wasn't real. I think more so now it's the new norm, right? I don't think interest rates, I don't have my crystal ball, but like this is the new norm where interest rates are at. So it's either you can afford to pay this monthly payment or you can't. Yeah. And it's just as simple as that. Yeah. There may be some incentives the lender can do to be creative, right? Yeah. For you with a 3-2-1 buy down and things of that nature. That's out there. But if you're at this monthly payment, this is the market that's out there. You can always refinance down if you need to once you buy it. But this is how you need to think going into this market. Can you afford this monthly payment or can you not? Because I would not wait, because the cost of waiting is expensive. The cost of waiting is expensive because you're paying rent, right? And your house
Rent's going up.
Rent's going
Rent is
up.
still going up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the house that you could potentially buy is still appreciating.
Yeah.
This market is still appreciating, and it will appreciate. So the cost of waiting is more expensive than getting out here to buy something, to get an asset. It's almost like if you don't have an asset, you can't afford not to have an asset to be insulated. You got to have that asset.
Yeah. Well, because when I think of all the factors, like in addition to that pent up demand and people kind of waiting on the sidelines, the getting acclimated, right, to the current rate environment is the other piece.
Yeah.
But then also, I think folks are, and I guess there's FOMO on both sides. Like FOMO can, like, fear of missing out is something that can either motivate folks or scare them and be like, no, I don't want to feed into the frenzy.
Right.
I feel like this acclimation is not just around rates. In our area, in the DC metro area, it's folks realizing that for this kind of product, this is about what it costs.
It's about
and the other factor that's important to talk about is still inventory, right? We talk every week about new listings, coming soons, pendings, things like that. And it was there were times we were talking about, like, for PG, Moco, Arlington, Alexandria, and in DC, that there were only something like 40 coming soons or like 100 new listings.
Yes.
And again, those numbers have increased now. So there's definitely a kind of a breath of life and opportunity, but it has not caught up from the really intense dips. Because if you look at over the last couple of years, right, seasonal market things go up and down.
Yeah.
When they would go down in the winter or other times, it would always come back and go crazy in spring or summer.
Right.
It didn't really go crazy in spring and summer in terms of inventory.
Correct.
So when that imbalance of, like, people who wanted to do it but chose to wait.
Yes.
That could afford to do it, but said, I'm going to see if rates can come back around.
Right.
When that sector of folks comes back into the market and says, well, I want to do it now, and there's not an influx of new opportunities, that's where the bidding wars come from.
So you have the people that are coming in who waited to the market. You have the families that are looking to get acclimated for school districts in the springtime as well, right? So it's more people than ever in the market looking to purchase this particular product, right? That's creating more of a frenzy in the marketplace. So that's why you got to be more prepared. That's why you got to, be very granular and specific and understand your budget and your goals. And even with that messaging, I still like to focus hyper local. You can't go look at the national news of what's going on. You have to.
Yeah, because we're talking about where we sell: DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, Baltimore, Northwestern Virginia, out to Annapolis, like Richmond, like our footprint. This is what we're seeing in this Mid-Atlantic market. And another factor, we talk about it, that drives demand is the job market around here, man.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like, you look at what's happening nationally, right?
Yes.
There's some weird stuff happening, both economically and in the job market. And folks, especially the family-driven, like, got to provide for my folks, like, mindset.
Yeah.
They want to be in an area that's got a strong job market.
Absolutely.
So that's another kind of insulator, if you will, that has always protected our market in the past. But on the other side now, it's a driving factor that had demand, which was kind of artificially paused, and it ramped right back up real quick.
Big time.
Yeah. So that's important, man. So we, again, and none of our conversations are ever doom and gloom or crazy.
Yeah.
We thought it was really important to give some of the context and information about kind of what's happening now. So now there were the factors. We understand kind of why this is happening. Let's talk about some strategies. When things shift, what do buyers do now? And let's talk first from kind of a mindset and approach, which you hinted at.
Yeah.
Give me, like, the top 3 things that a buyer, like, trying to compete in this market should be thinking about and should be considering to have a shot.
Absolutely. Financing is, I think about financing. If you're a first-time home buyer, and you need to be competitive, how can you leverage first-time home buyer programs, right? Or any type of cash that can help you be competitive, right? Also considering the monthly budget. You can be approved for $2 million, $3 million, but it's all about what you want to pay monthly and just keeping it simple from that standpoint. And another thing is, like, the emotional, overwhelming that can be stressful about buying a home in this market that a lot of people don't talk about. And I think for that right there, that feeling And I always tell my clients, peace of mind and good energy is everything going through this process.
Yeah.
I want to make sure you have that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there is so important because that drives the decision-making process.
Drive everything. Yeah.
You know, whether you should go 25K up and waive contingencies, whether you should, do a pre-inspection and waive your inspection contingency and things of that nature. That peace of mind is very important.
So stay there for a second, man, because I think there's so much to say about the phrase should.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Buyers come to this market and there's this idea of this concept of should. Like, here's what I should have to do in order to get a house. Here's what I should have to pay. Here's the amount of risk that I should have to take.
Yeah.
And what kind of throws it out the window, and I think what we, have kind of perfected from helping a lot of people is just managing expectations about like what is required now. Yeah. Acknowledging how you feel about it and that sometimes this is crazy. Like this is not logical. Yeah. Like by a lot of standards, this is not logical. Absolutely. However, because we have helped people navigate through the same decision, we have had to make some of the same decisions ourselves. Yeah. Getting past this concept of should is really empowering, but that's emotional. And that's like making a decision that I have complete clarity on my financing and numbers. Yes. Right. I have an understanding kind of my plan. And another phrase I'm going to throw out is I have an understanding of my ownership horizon. Yes. How long am I going to actually own this property? Yes. That can impact a lot of really important decisions that you make. For one, what kind of financing terms am I willing to accept? What type of premium am I willing to pay over what it's currently listed for? The longer I own something, the longer my ownership horizon, that really can be an equalizer to a lot of kind of short-term discomfort. Keith, what is your phrase about short-term sacrifices?
Short-term sacrifice for long-term success. Short-term sacrifices for long-term success.
And that is more prevalent than ever, I think, in a market that shifts, because when we talk about that emotional piece that you have to figure out, we're not going to have all the answers, Sway.
We're not going to have all the answers
up front.
We don't.
But we're going to give you as much information and context and support to make that decision right now. Because some people I'm a type A.
Yeah, I know.
I like all the info. It's just me.
Yeah.
It would make me so great if I could have 120% of all the variables outlined and understood up front. And a lot of my clients feel the same way. Yeah. The emotional piece of this is just saying that I'm going to be okay with making what is a pretty big decision with maybe 75 to 80% of that info.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
And also knowing that that's not something that is specifically put on you for that. Yeah. That is the pace and that is how it goes to win. Because if you stay on the other side and say, well, without that additional 20%, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. The time you sit and wait to either get
it's gone.
Additional money, additional information.
It's gone.
You missed out on the opportunity. And that's not about like a fire sale. That's not about like saying like, oh, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. Like you will always figure it out in some way. But that like kind of fear-driven holding back because I either can't get enough information or I can't feel comfortable enough to do it is what I've seen. We've seen it. Hold people back. And they call us back a year later like, man, I really wish, like it was crazy back then, but
I wish I would have hopped in, Yeah, and I just, that goes back to, the messaging, and we've helped so many people with this process, and thank God, the skill set that we train on, and we train for our clients to help them be in better positions to win, and also to make them feel comfortable and to make them feel good about the decisions that they're making, because a lot of times, when you think about this market, thank God we've invested and we know like what this market can do. We know what properties in certain places can do. We know where, appreciation is going to look like in this market, and cash flow as well in this market. So taking all of that and being able to exert that to our clients, like that's super helpful. I have a lot of people that come to me and say, hey, Keith, I know I'm going to live in this property, but the fact that you were able to talk the investment side of what this asset is going to do for me was very helpful throughout the process, because that right there in itself made a difference in my decision-making process. We just had to go up on a deal, $150,000 to win it.
And that's what it took.
That's what it took.
That's what it took. You can feel how you want to feel about it. Absolutely. And I think that's another important tip that we share with our clients and with our agents. Yeah. Feel how you want to feel about the decision you got to make. But you don't have a very big window to kind of wallow or kind of get into a spiral about those feelings, because in this market, especially for opportunities like that are outstanding, someone else is going to be quicker to that decision. And you ask the question, would I prefer to have the peace of mind knowing that I didn't stretch myself and I didn't make an uncomfortable decision? Or would I prefer to actually have secured the property and have some temporary discomfort versus owning it and the potential that I'm going to realize just from owning it, just from having the dirt? Like that time as an equalizer, I think is the most important thing for anybody to keep in mind, especially when we talk to investors. Like we are thinking long term about my ownership. If anybody's coming to us right now and says, I got to get out in 2.5 to 3 years, I'm gonna be like, then this math probably is not going to work for you.
Isn't math not going to be math?
Period. Like that's just true.
The math is not going to math.
But if you can be ready for an ownership horizon, I think of 5 to 7 years. Like in no crystal ball, can't predict exactly what will happen, but especially in our area with all the factors we know, you should be good. All right, so go ahead. You have something?
No, I was gonna say that's why that relationship and asking the right questions are important, and being real with yourself on what is this asset going to be utilized for. Is this going to be a property that I'm going to be in for the next 15 years? Is this going to be an asset that I'm going to live up top, rent out the basement? Is this a multifamily long-term hold? Like just being realistic and understanding that there's a lot of stuff that you see on the internet that people are doing, but you have to ask yourself, what do you have the appetite for?
Capacity, appetite, mental space, right?
Absolutely.
All that.
Yeah.
Dope. So talked about some factors kind of driving what's going on, talked about some specific strategies for buyers. Let's talk about sellers. Because when markets shift, it impacts both sides. And what I think is unique about 2023 relative to what we were seeing in 2020 and 2021 is that the target and what will generate a multiple offer scenario hasn't really changed.
Correct.
I think the gray area around it, like you could have just threw any old piece of crap on the market, any condition, didn't matter. Everybody and their cousin would come and fight over it in 2020, 2021. The money was so cheap. Everybody, the ability for folks to pay way over it was there. Right now, we've got this hybrid situation in a tale of two markets where when a product is correctly priced, correctly positioned, in good condition, it's going to attract a lot of people. Not the whole neighborhood, but a lot of people. The interesting part is, though, even with only 2, 3, or 4 offers, the swings and how much people are willing to go when you do it right is kind of crazy, right? Like on our recent Riverdale, Maryland property that we had, there was no comp that would have supported a sale over 480,000. So we listed it just below that, like 479.
Right.
We ended up achieving 508,000, and the buyer that came to do it waived their appraisal, but it was only 5 offers total.
Okay.
And again, at that price point, that doesn't seem like that much, but we're talking almost like 5.5%, almost 6%.
That's significant.
That's significant. Like that's significant, and not a huge down payment, like not a ton of cash. They just made up the difference and did the math.
So on that piece, like, what were some of the things that you kind of coach your clients on to prepare that product to go to the market?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at strategies for sellers in a shifting market, number one thing you need to think about is, how do I overcome objections that a potential buyer might have coming in? And objections can be in both extremes. It can either be an objection that prevents me from doing anything about the house at all, like smells like cat piss. Excuse me, smells like cat pee.
Cat pee.
Smells like cat pee. Cat pee is a non-starter for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
But that's something that we can get rid of, that cat smell.
Yeah.
Or is it like, I'm looking at your stuff in the house, and I know you're a proud member of a Divine Nine fraternity. But if I am a member of another one and you got a bunch of stuff in there that distracts me away from it, how do I neutralize the house as much as possible so people don't get distracted, and I don't have an intermediate distraction that stops me from taking action? So step one for sellers, how do I eliminate distractions? And that can be as simple as cleaning up to as far as repairing that nagging thing that you needed to fix.
I think what's kind of cool on what you talked about, like, you haven't even mentioned pricing yet. No. Like, that's not even, because majority of the time people thinking like, well, what's my price going to be? What's my price going to be? Sellers, that's, sometimes it can be a topic of conversation, but the first thing you're telling them is, how do we overcome objections? And that goes to that buyer's peace of mind.
Yeah. And we know it. Look, from all the conversations we have and the people we've had at homes, we have literally heard everything that a buyer has had to say about a property, be it rational, irrational, ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Like, they notice it. And especially in times like this that are shifting, like, people are emotional right
Yeah,
now,
very
man.
emotional.
And you don't
Very
want to. I don't
emotional.
want to give them a reason
Yes.
to disqualify or
Yes.
try to discount or not want to do something with my property.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, first piece is overcoming objections, and the second piece is pricing, right? Like,
Yep.
how am I going to
Yep.
be thoughtful with framing this property relative to the rest of the market? The best way I like to describe it is this home going to be sold at a discount relative to market value? Is it going to be on par or like logically right in the middle of where market value is? Or is it going to be offered at a premium relative to market value? In the past, we could just go for premium.
Yeah, absolutely.
The premium didn't matter, you know.
Yep. Premium gas. 93.
Less variables,
Throw
right?
it on, yeah.
I'd say right now it is much more strategic and smart to focus on that middle of the market to the discount side of the market.
Yeah.
Because if I've got emotional and kind of fickle buyers coming in and looking, I want to make sure that when they come in, their immediate thought is, oh, like this kind of makes sense. Or what's that phrase we hear but hate to hear? This is a good deal.
This is a good deal.
This is a good deal.
Yeah.
What's a deal? A deal is like subjective. Like
Right.
What is a deal, right?
Right.
But if we can create a set of circumstances where a buyer thinks or feels that in that first impression or within that first week on market, you are best set up for success. Because what happens on the other side of it, if I go for that premium relative to market value and I got the cat pee,
Yeah.
or I got the distracting things on the wall, or I got these other objections that I did not properly account for in price, and you sit, Keith, what's the first thing a buyer says to you when a property is set on the market for like 45, 50 days? What do they think?
Can we get this $20,000 below list price?
Can I cut their knees off?
Can I get 10,000 in closing help?
Everything. They're gonna they're gonna try to get you.
But to that point now, like for days on market purposes, like used to be if we listed it on Thursday, did 2 open houses Saturday and Sunday, we were reviewing offers on Monday evening because we had multiple offers, which is happening, in some cases, right? But now, what are you saying around like, okay, what is a good days on market? Because sellers might ask like, well, why hasn't my house sold yet? Or you might have some sellers that are like, well, it's only been 5 days. We got 3 offers. Let's just wait to see what else we get.
Yeah.
That's a real thing right there.
It's a real thing. And because that optimism or that assumption that you are going to have extraordinary results because your property is extraordinary. And again, to you, we're all beautiful individuals in the eyes of God,
Absolutely.
right? However, house stuff ain't that different.
Yeah.
It just really isn't.
Yeah.
So in terms of days on market expectation, I think now it's gone up. If something is sitting, and I'm talking with the buyer, talking with the seller, if we're at 14 or even 20 days on market, I'm not freaked out.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, right? Because that is normal, a normal and healthy market where it takes 3 weeks to a month for a property to sell.
Yeah.
And from an average standpoint, because we saw days on market go up significantly last year when things got weird, and we're seeing that we're in the midst of a correction back down right now.
Right.
Being in the 10 to 14 is not a problem, but when you price it right, your optimal strategy and your optimal timeline is 5 to 7.
Yeah.
5 to 7 with a good marketing strategy. Like for us, 5 to 7 is different than your average 5 to 7 because the beautiful photos, the additional social media exposure that we get organically,
absolutely,
the agent connections that we have from the agents who are looking at between our HomeSnap profile, our other page, like we're able to achieve more eyeballs and more engagement on a listing. So our 5 to 7 can be the equivalent of some others 12, 14, 20.
100%.
So when you've got a team and listing strategy that is getting maximum exposure in that short time frame, that is beneficial to you as a seller because it's going to create what in the eyes of the buyer? Some urgency. And it's going to, because what people, there's a great comedic line the other day. It's like, nobody wants nobody that nobody else wants.
That's so true.
I've probably said nobody one too many times.
Yeah.
But nobody wants a house that nobody else wants.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I create a situation where it's not a frenzy, it's not a fire sale, it's not like I personally don't like when there are 25, 30 offers on a house.
Yeah.
Like that to me says you egregiously underpriced. Yeah. And even worse, you're going to have probably 75% of those offers that weren't even close.
Right.
And they were dreaming about it and they loved it.
Yeah.
And like, oh my God. And then for us as listing agents, we will still present everything to the sellers because we do. There's a whole swath of them that aren't even close.
Absolutely.
When you price it right and you can attract 4 or 5 offers. That's the sweet spot, and that urgency creates that situation in 5 to 7 days.
And that's some strategy, right? That's strategy around pricing. That's strategy around what to expect when you price and market very well, which is what we do at a high level. Now, with the strategies on the selling side, I guess getting the property ready to go to market, right? That's a big part of it, like decluttering and things of that nature. Right now in the spring market, you got a lot of sellers that are selling to buy something else.
Correct. Move up buyers.
Move up buyers. That could create some type of frenzy in itself from a peace of mind standpoint, because you're selling on one end and now they have to go enter the buyer market
on that
to
same
buy
market.
on that same market, right? So what are some, like, how are you coaching? What are you telling your clients around that piece? Like, what does that look like?
Well, for one, we talked about the hyper-local nature of the market right now. And we can say, like, while I would hope to achieve the same results for you on both sides, understand that if I'm getting a bunch of people come to fight over your house to buy it from you, when you go to buy something, you're probably going to need to be ready for that same level of competition.
Absolutely.
So we talked about it in one of the past episodes of the different strategies people can have. I'd argue that now we definitely have to shift to sellers listing their home with a home of choice contingency. So that they got the capital, they got the strong contract there.
Absolutely.
And they can compete with the same timelines on a new home.
Absolutely.
Instead of getting them to say, hey, seller, wait for me to sell my home in order for you to go. Like that puzzle piece now, not saying it never happens, but that is much more challenging when the market shifts like it has. So listing with a home of choice contingency for spring 2023 and beyond is kind of a requirement if you have to buy and sell. There are other creative solutions like bridge loans and other things that, depending on the amount of capital you got, that you can look into. And we've helped people explore all of them. I think it really just depends on the capital, your timeline, and just kind of your risk tolerance that you got to be able to explore either. But sellers need to understand you are participating in the same market unless you go to a different neighborhood. Like that's the thing. If you change kind of geographically, the hyper-local thing can change. But it is a very hot and cold, fickle, up and down hyper-local. But people are still finding success. And at the end of the day, I think the most important sentiment to express with all of this is that being in position to take action is the most impactful, important thing you can do. What do we mean by that?
Prior preparation prevents poor performance.
All them P's, right? Planning.
Pushing P's, man.
Planning to take action, because nothing makes me sadder. This really makes me sad when a client says, like, man, I really wish I could have done something about that house. And I'm like, well, when we talked on the consult a month ago and you said you were going to wait a little bit, I'm just saying. Like, And it's interesting because I feel like that, back to the emotional piece, sometimes a loss on one that they really like, and we talked about this last episode. A loss can be super motivating to get people. And this is why when we're prepping people to write offers, you never know who you're competing against.
You never know.
The other person that's writing an offer there could have just got their butt kicked last week. So they coming in guns, they're going to do whatever it takes.
That's happening. I'm seeing that right now. Like you can tell, like people are like, you know what? I'm going to get that.
That's it. By any means. Like, I'm going to get it.
That's mine.
So whenever someone's entering a competitive situation, just know you never know exactly where all the other parties are coming from and what can you control in that situation. Your capacity.
Absolutely.
You can control what you're willing to do, what you're able to do, put forth your best. And if it goes beyond that, you want to go get it.
And I think it's safe to say, man, like we've sold over 1,500 homes in the last 4 years, and like it never fails us. What's for you is for you. Period. And I was just on the phone before we started the podcast with a client, and I told her, I said, somebody came in and waived everything. Right? I know you're not comfortable doing that, and that's okay. And she said, well, Keith, I really like the house. I said, on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad you want it? She said an 8. You know what I told her? I said, you know what? It's okay. This may not be the one for you. We need to continue looking, because I don't feel comfortable telling you to waive everything. I'm not, that's not what we're in the business of doing. Peace of mind and good energy is everything. You become the landlord now, and I want you to have trust in me. So let's continue to look, and what's for you is for you. Let's get back out there. She said, Keith, you know what? You're right, and I really appreciate that. Let's go looking tomorrow.
Because you're going to keep it moving, right?
Keep it moving.
But they have the knowledge.
They have the knowledge.
Like, here is what it takes to actually compete and get it done.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the sooner people can get to that point of kind of knowing what it takes, just the better off they are. Because let's be honest, the other part of this and just the whole home buying process in total is the stamina that you have to do this. Like,
Right.
I feel like the House Hunter shows, the only thing I like about House Hunters is that they only see 3 houses.
That's it. And they writing. This is the one.
This is the one. Because I feel like there's something built into folks' heads, especially when market shifts, is they feel like, I got to see everything. If I don't see everything, I'm going to miss out.
Yeah, no.
And we know from experience that, like, there are only but so many decisions
That's
and only
the
but
worst
so
way
many
to shop.
variables that somebody can even calculate or think about at all. So,
That's,
like,
you know what I like? That's just like going into the department store, if they still have department stores. This is like going in the store and trying on every pair of clothes that's
your size.
That's your size.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
No. And in that same analogy, at the end of putting on 75 different sports coats,
right?
Are you going to remember the one that was even the best? Like there's a limit. And again, this is not speaking down to people's ability to problem solve or process, but like focus is a super powerful tool, and the willingness to do what it takes to compete to win on that one within your capacity. That's it. Like,
and that focus, like we've said this for years, you know, when it's time for you to get out there on the marketplace and start looking, like even in the beginning phases, there's 3 buckets: price, location, and suitability. Once we knock out those 3 buckets and just keep it that simple, if you can keep it that, I mean, that's one of my favorite pages in the buyer console because it simplifies everything.
Yeah.
This is all I have to do to buy a house. Yeah. Price, location, suitability. Keep it simple. Knock that out, you're going to the closing table.
Yeah. Get her done. I love it, man. The last thing to touch on before we kind of wrap up is some of the economic factors right now.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about interest rates and kind of where they are, how people feel about outlaying a big chunk of capital towards a house when there are other kind of economic insecurities.
Yes.
Just wanted to get your opinion on this because I had a conversation the other day with a young lady. And the biggest piece of advice I have for folks when there is uncertainty, you really got to think about your different buckets. Shout out to Lux Wealth and Northwest Mutual.
Shout out to
you
Matt.
really got to think about your different buckets and make sure that if my strategy is to build wealth, which everybody wants to do, what are the different ways I'm kind of hedging? And is it okay for me? Do I have enough other deployment of my capital or a plan to deploy to where if I don't make a killing on my house that I live in, I'm still going to be okay long term?
That's a great point.
Right? Like
that's peace right there, man.
Because economically, like again, we're not economists, we're not financial planners. Exactly. We've got smart ones in our world that talk to us. I just feel like getting people to lean in times when things are leaner and even scarier, even more frustrating, that's when you really need to have crystal clear intentions and plans.
What's your quote? What's your quote that you say about like
the best opportunities?
The best opportunity, yeah.
The best opportunities are just I'm pulling Ryan. The best opportunities are often just on the other side of what is comfortable, but never on the other side of what is reasonable, logical, and makes sense for you, right?
That's powerful.
You got to push it. You got to push it a little bit, and especially economically, having the right people in your world to know what that pushing it looks like is so powerful and so important, because when you've got enough kind of deployment and some diversification in your plan, you're not banking on just this one house.
100%
happens in it.
And I think we're not economists or financial advisors, but we answer questions like we are sometimes, right? Let's just be fair. We wear many hats in this game. And so when people come to me and they say, hey, Keith, what should I do? You know, and a lot of times it goes around like, where should I pull capital from? You know, whether if they own a house already, where am I going to get the capital from this investment or from this purchase? Because I tell clients, you know, even if you're going to live in the house, it's still an investment, period. And if you're going to deploy capital, looking at your buckets, right? Retirement accounts, you know, cash value life insurance policies, right? And the thing about the retirement account, what I like is that, you know, you can't touch that money until you're 65 years old, right? And if we look at retirement accounts versus the housing market in the last 5 years, I don't know what that was. It's cool. If you look at your retirement account versus the housing market, man, it's always knocking over something, man. If you look at your retirement account versus the housing market over the last, 5 years, your house has appreciated more than, your retirement account. And if you're, day traders and stocks and things of that nature, man, I looked at my stock portfolio the other day and I'm like, oh my God. Now, at the end of the day, these are all long-term vehicles, and you have to understand that, right? if you're in this game for instant gratification, for overnight success, like that's not what you should be doing. This is not the game you should be in.
Even the richest people, wealthiest people in the world are not in that game, in this game right now to do it, just because these factors create both uncertainty and just the cost, the hard cost inside of it.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just saying, like, long term is what the smartest people, Warren Buffett, always long term, wealthiest man in the world.
Yeah.
We need to get our clients and more folks to think in that same long term bucket. Like I won't say there are very limited options for short term gratification.
Very
for
limited.
real estate investment.
Exactly.
Just period.
Yeah. Even the people that flip houses wish they had the life we had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got investors all day long that are like, man, I'm flipping these houses, but man, like, how consistent can this be? Finding these deals, it could be tough, So I think when you think about your lifestyle and what you're doing, anytime you're deploying capital out of any of your buckets, understanding that play and that this is a long-term play. You should be thinking long-term. It's not, a year. It's not 6 months. These are long-term plays you should be thinking about.
Love it. So long-term, think like an investor, begin with the end in mind.
With the end in mind.
Looking ahead and, have the right team around you, man.
Yeah.
And also I feel like there's to wrap it up, one of my main points I want to relay to folks now is that the more information you have and the sooner you are empowered to begin your research and taking action, the more options you're going to have.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like there's this other side of it that says, no, I just have to hold back and wait. I got to take this for face value that it's a bad time, or that in the midst of a shift it's bad. And these other folks are doing crazy stuff, so I shouldn't do it right now, right? Whereas, and for some folks, no, you shouldn't right now, probably, right? Like, depending on the situation. But for most people that we talk to, like, being empowered, knowing your numbers, having clarity.
Clarity is power.
Is the best thing you can do, because waiting, and especially in markets like the DMV, there is not a situation where you're going to be able to procure the same product at the same price or cheaper. Just period, right? Like, just period. So that's one of my main thoughts is like, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
You don't have to get ready if you stay ready, man.
And make sure that you've got the correct kind of context around the action that you should take in the market right now, because there is still opportunity. And I think it's a bigger risk of loss from not taking action than there is from potential negatives that could come from taking action right now.
Absolutely.
What's your kind of wrap-up thoughts for Mr. Jimmy
Oh,
Kenneth?
man, we kind of came in here. We're in the spring market, so we're feeling a little upbeat, rocking and rolling. We got a lot going on, right? And I think it was just important and very timely to talk about the spring market and what the spring 2023 is bringing us, so we can provide that information for you guys that are out there looking to either get in the market, sell a house, whatever the dates may be in the real estate market. So I think it was an important topic right now to talk about.
And this is your first time joining us on the All Blends Perfectly podcast, make sure you check out some of our previous episodes. I know episode 2, we did talk about both the current market, which was in January, but also some strategies that are tried and true throughout. Like, we got some significant nuggets of all things that you should consider about that.
Absolutely. And anytime you're thinking about making a move, I would always, my favorite quote, you just talked about a short-term sacrifice for long-term success, whether that's, you might have to go up on pricing, if you're looking in the spring market, understanding what the product is and the investment that you're making sure you begin with the end in mind on that investment anytime you're deploying capital out of your pockets.
Love it, man. So the best way to succeed is to actually get out there and take action.
Yep.
Make sure you are on top of your capacity, understand and do your research about the suitability, which is the most subjective factor of that.
Yeah.
And make sure you're working with trusted professionals, man. Like, right now, more than ever, you need to work with folks that got some experience, context, and a set of resources that can support you. Plug in to @AllBlendsPerfectly on Instagram. This dude, blue check Jimmy Kenneth, is @Keith James Realtor. @Ryan Butler Hoya is always with us in spirit. Our sales team is @Coalition Properties, and I am personally @HL Beach. Make sure you like us, give us a 5-star review, and share the podcast with somebody if you enjoyed it, to see if they will think the same. But thank you so much. We'll see you next time on All Blends Perfectly.